What makes a scene emotional? Hey, what's up, Story Geeks? It's Jay Shear, author of the time travel novel Time Slingers and co-host of the Story Geeks podcast. So Disney and Pixar do an amazing job of giving us all the feels with their animated films. But what makes a scene emotional? We just yesterday did our Inside Out, our dig deeper into Inside Out, and that gave us 5 emotions that we feel. It gave us disgust, joy, sadness, anger, and fear. So what about these scenes that we're going to cover today, these emotionally impactful Disney movie scenes, what about them makes us feel those emotions, those 5 emotions, or any other emotions that we feel when we watch movies? What is it that makes us feel those things in those scenes? I would like to hear your comments down below about what you think you feel when you see these scenes and what's prompting that in you. The first thing I think is that we feel those things when we have had a similar or a shared experience as to what the characters are going through. If we've been there, then we realize those real emotions in ourselves, right? If we can replicate, for example, the marriage memories from Up, right? Very emotional scene. If we can feel that way about our spouse as the character is feeling on screen, or maybe it's not our spouse, maybe it's someone else that was close to us that we had a really close relationship to, then that can make us feel those same emotions because we felt them before, and it's easy for us to revisit those emotional scenes, those emotions themselves. We can also empathize or sympathize with what we're seeing someone else experience on screen. So maybe we haven't experienced these emotions before. Maybe these emotions are new to us. For example, this magic carpet ride emotion that Aladdin and Jasmine are experiencing. Maybe you haven't felt that kind of love before in your life, but you can experience it through them by empathizing and sympathizing with them. And that is really what comes down to the actors and the animators being so important to visual storytelling, because they're what's going to get us really wrapped into this experience that we're having on screen. They're a conduit for us to get into that emotional space. And obviously in these movies, these characters become really, really, really important. So that's what I think makes a scene emotional. But what makes an emotional scene impactful? Because you can have an emotional scene where you're like, okay, that's a good emotional scene, but what makes it impactful? And I'm going to pause really quick because Jessica says music helps her feel what the creators want me to feel. Exactly. So you have multiple things that you can play upon as a filmmaker to make us feel. One is the way that the characters interact with what they're experiencing. Another is the feeling that we get when we listen to music. Another is what we see on screen, how that's happening, how colors change. You'll notice that a lot of movies have a color palette to them. Why is that? Because those color palettes affect our emotions. So yeah, the music is a really important one. But what makes an emotional scene impactful? What do you think makes an emotional scene impactful? I have a couple things that I think make emotional scenes impactful. The first is that they can help us empathize with a specific character, which then helps us feel something about that character. We go, I can now experience the world through their eyes, and now I empathize with them, and now I care more about them. And emotionally impactful scenes can put us in a very vulnerable place. So that opens us up to new perspectives and new experiences, right? If we start to become vulnerable, we are now watching something and we're opening ourselves up to different ways of thinking about it. If we don't allow ourselves to be vulnerable, we'll never change our mind about things. We will never be exposed to new things that make us think differently about the world. So this is why emotion is so important to storytelling. Stories impact our understanding and our interpretation of the world, and emotions allow us to open ourselves up to that specific experience. That's what I think is both emotional and impactful to the story, and therefore impactful to us. That's what makes a scene emotional, our ability to share an experience with the characters or empathize with them, and then that opening us up to be more vulnerable, to be able to understand and interpret the world differently based on what we're experiencing in the actual story. Thanks for watching. If you liked today's video, hit the like button. Make sure you hit that like button. Click the subscribe button for more geek discussions just like this one. And finally, as we always say to close out every show, Question everything in your favorite geek stories, even how they're emotionally manipulating you, perhaps, and always seek the truth